Black women on the House Oversight panel have been given the heat talking about DEI, Republicans doing their usual nonsense. Well, here's Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley giving her 5 cents in 5 minutes. Of course, Summer Lee and Jasmine Crockett did the same yesterday. We wanted to show you what Pressley had to say. Check this out.
This bill, titled the Dismantling DEI Act, is an utter disgrace. Having sat and read the text in preparation for today's markup, I have yet another example to tell my constituents about the unserious work of the Republican Party. Now, I'll work with anyone serious about progress who wants to center the people who call this country home. This isn't it. The Committee on Oversight has the broadest jurisdiction in the entire House of Representatives to investigate any topic it chooses, but we are debating legislation that denies the sky is blue, water is wet, and racism is real. The major provision of the bill says to ban anything that acknowledges racism. And a few pages later in the exact same bill, there are multiple provisions discussing the presence of racism. This Republican approach is as predictable as it is nonsensical. On one hand, they're saying that racism does not exist. On the other hand, they are saying there is rampant reverse racism. Well, how do you reverse something that never existed in the first place? Riddle me that. While this Republican policy may have a new name, it's the same old tired game. Look, y'all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. Do you all know your history? Do you know American history? The original Constitution counted enslaved individuals as 3/5 of a person. During World War II, the federal government forcibly relocated and incarcerated 110,000 Japanese Americans. The FHA practiced redlining in the 1930s and 60s to deny mortgages to Black Americans, which is why we have a racial wealth gap today. I could go on. The GI Bill, which is supposed to be race neutral, denied access to Black Americans, denying them equal access to education and housing benefits, which is why we do not have generational wealth. Don't talk to me about merit when those Black servicemen fought for our freedoms. And I'd also just like to take a personal note of privilege to say, please keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name out of your mouths. Yes. Your perversion of his words and his mission when his children have asked you to stop invoking his name and perverting his work when he was a proud and unapologetic Black man fighting for equality for Black Americans and all marginalized people. So you all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. But I'm not surprised that you would deny American history. What I am, though, is committed. Committed to speaking truth to power, committed to standing up for marginalized communities and vulnerable people, committed to ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity to buy a house, to work a job, to pursue higher education, and to live in a society that is fair and just. A colleague across the aisle invoked the phrase of, we must do everything to stop government-sponsored oppression. Well, I've just enumerated numerous examples, which is exactly why we have legislation and an executive order to reverse this harm. And that is why I'm committed to opposing this bill and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Look, what we are seeing here, Joy, and when I talk about these programs, you're already seeing it. But they're the victims. These white men are so oppressed. These white men, we can't get jobs. It is so nonsensical. But here's the other thing. The people who are so pathetic, which is one of the reasons why Vice President Kamala Harris is not president, white women. White women are the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action and DEI in this country. Yeah. There are white folks walking around today whose mamas and aunts and sisters and cousins who have got grandmamas who've gotten contracts and built businesses off of MWBE. And what people don't understand is if you are a Black woman, they don't count you in the women category. You're counted in the Black category. If you are Latina, you're not counted in the women category. you counted in the Latino Hispanic category. And so that's just a fact. And so it's amazing to me to listen to these white folks. Then they get mad. They're on social media calling Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Oh my God, she's so ghetto. She's so ghetto, and how dare she? I saw it was I think Jonah Goldberg or someone else said, "Oh, see, this is the problem right here. This is why Democrats lost. You know, people like this." And maybe it wasn't someone else, but they were complaining about it. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, so y'all mad that black folk are calling y'all out on your sheer stupidity?" That's literally what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, what we love about Jasmine Crockett, what we love about Congresswoman Pressley is they're telling the truth. Look, the fact of the matter is there are white men out there who can't get jobs, right? We know that salaries have been reducing for American workers over decades. This is why we had an agenda with the Biden-Harris and then hopefully the Harris-Walz administrations that would have been working to solve those problems, to restore the American dream. But people's ignorance, their cult following, their, let's face it, racism and misogyny cheated them out of a future in which we all could have shared. We could have seen improvements. Democrats have made mistakes. You're not going to see me defend any of them on tonight. But the fact of the matter is the American people backed the wrong horse. These folks do not care about them. And I don't want to make it just about African Americans, because the fact of the matter is a lot of white people and a lot of women, white women, benefit from these programs. But that's not the narrative we have told. And oftentimes we've made...
Hold on, Joy. Let's be real. Joy. Hold on, Joy. No, Joy. We got to be real factual. We got to be factual. Not a lot of white women. When it comes to any MWBE program, the group that has the largest share is the women category, and that category should be WW for white women. You show me construction, you show me any city and state, I'm going to show you where women are getting the most contracts, and that's white women. So when they talk about DEI, DEI ain't nothing but yesterday's global diversity officer. And before that, it was, again, affirmative action programs. DEI ain't nothing but the grandson, the granddaughter of affirmative action. And white women have benefited from DEI. White women in corporate America. White women in law firms. White women in the medical field, in the dental field. And when it comes to these attacks, these white women are silent.
Worse, they're not just silent, they're actually voting with the other side. I wish they were silent. It's worse than that. I think that for many of them, they've cast their lots with white men. Some of the things I work in the gender space, a lot of lies that we tell are that, your proximity won't save you. But the fact of the matter is proximity has saved a lot of white women. So they got the saving of the rest of us who fought for equity programs, right? Got them to where they're almost 50% of the workforce, and some workforces even higher than that. They've been the beneficiary of all the DEI and affirmative action. And now they are willing to sink it for the rest of us when it's no longer convenient for them. They are simply not the allies that we wanted them to be. Maybe we didn't even think they were, but they're never going to be the allies that we need them to be. And that's why I won't be walking in the Women's March. And I know many other Black women feel the same, because we just have not seen that level of engagement with them, that level of reciprocity. They took everything and they gave almost nothing back.
Well, and I think, listen, all of those speeches, Lauren, were great, but I really wish Congresswomen Crockett, Summer Lee, and Ayanna Pressley had turned to every white woman on the committee and say, are you going to speak up? Because women like you, y'all have benefited from DEI. Y'all are the beneficiaries of DEI. See, I think what has happened, Lauren, is that when it comes to programs like this, we've let white women off the hook. Typically, it's black folks who are defending these programs. Nah. We got to call that thing a thing and say, y'all have been benefiting. It's white women walking around who go, we don't benefit from affirmative action. Oh, yes, you do. And so it's time to put folk on Front Street, Lauren.
Well, when it comes to black leadership and black politics, and some might call it black misleadership, what we see so often is that we are advocating for a lot of other groups and a lot of other people. We are not really calling out white women, as you just said. We then see press releases from various black organizations and historic black civil rights organizations talking about almost every other group except the one that organization says it stands for, African Americans. I can remember a few years ago, I think it was the Urban League that put out a press release with regard to immigration, the Dreamers. Certainly, we've seen several press releases from the NAACP for various other groups, LGBT, et cetera, and so on. And that's all fine if the streets are paved with gold in black communities and everything's perfect in our communities, but it isn't. And when you're only 13 and 14% of the population, it's really important that your leadership is laser focused on some of the bigger issues that you are dealing with. And obviously, when we talk about any sort of opportunity, when we talk about DEI, opportunities for jobs and wealth building, it's really important in the black community the leadership stay focused on that, because that wealth building piece was dismantled, obviously, during our first 300 years in this experience of being in the United States. So knowing all of that, the leadership has to be very focused, whether it's the Congressional Black Caucus, whether it's the NAACP, whether it's the Urban League, or anybody else. And it's very hard to find in a world of corporate control leadership that is brave enough to sort of wave off that corporate control and do what is right for the constituency that you're representing. That is a piece that is not working right now with regard to leadership in the black community. And I think there has to be a major reset with a lot of these groups and I think some members of Congress when it comes to, the question of allyship, because we really have no allies. We don't have a lot of groups that come to us and say, we'll help you out with this thing and we'll put out press releases and we'll make statements and our leaders will center your problems and your experiences. Our groups do that for other groups, but we don't see it the other way around quite often. So that has been a huge problem that needs to be fixed.
See, Derek, when I talk about putting folk on Front Street, this is how I look at it. Man, maybe I'm just a little bit too radical on this whole thing. So you're in the Georgia legislature. I would sit here and I would go, how many white women in this body have companies that do businesses with the city, the county, school board, or state? And I would sit here and say, Representative so-and-so, you against DEI? Well, that's interesting because you should get contracts because you're a woman. That's DEI. So-and-so, oh, you got $6 million in contracts from this year, from your business. Oh, you are the beneficiary of DEI dollars. You did DEI. When I was at Texas A&M, there, I gave it was a speech communications class, and we had to give a presentation. So I picked affirmative action, and this is what I said. I was the only, I think maybe it was one of the black person in the class, and so I said, how many of you in this class, your mothers own businesses? And hands went up, and I said, how many of your mothers, to your knowledge, have received city, county, state, federal contracts? Hands went up. I said, congratulations. Affirmative action is paying for your college. Man, these white folks, they were aghast. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Your mamas are benefiting from affirmative action. Your mamas are getting contracts. They had never had somebody tell them that. See, this is just the moment, as far as I'm concerned, where you got to call folk out and say, yes, you are. Maybe we should come up and use the phrase, I just say DEI dollars, bowling for DEI dollars. Oh, you got some DEI dollars? You got some DEI dollars? Oh, you got some DEI dollars. And then use placards and call them out. And then also call out all these women's groups. I would say, matter of fact, I think somebody should, one of these conservative women's groups, go pull a roster and see how many of them have businesses and how do they get contracts and go, man, look at y'all with those DEI dollars. Mm-hmm. To me, that's how you got to fight and call these folk out.
You know, Roland, I think all of Trump hires are DEI hires. They all white men, right? I do agree that we need to call them out. Because here's the thing though, Roland, and I know you're here in Atlanta with us. They don't use the term DEI for them. They use the word legacy, Roland. Your legacy. So you go to Harvard for free because of legacy. You go to Yale for free, your legacy. They don't use the same vernacular. Listen, since last year, Roland, over 30 states have implemented some form of DEI law to either restrict any form of DEI, 30 states. So what do you think is going to happen come January? In fact, 2 days ago, Roland, Trump used the word reparation. He's going to give 3 million white men reparations. He said that's their reparation for those blacks who went to HBCUs. So we do need to call them out, but it requires political courage. Roland, you know as well as I'm in Georgia, the largest black caucus in the United States. What will we do in this manner to do exactly what you just called for us to do? Call folks out, call some of my colleagues who are white women and say, you are receiving dollars. They won't do that, Roland. You know that and I know that because they don't want to exercise political courage to get that done.
Well, again, I just think that if you want to expose people for their hypocrisy, you got to call them by name. You got to name check them. You got to expose them, and you got to say, "Oh, look at Miss DEI dollars. Oh, she hates DEI, but she gets contracts because she's a woman." Baby, that's called good old affirmative action. I'm just saying that's what maybe should be done.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation 8 crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.